The promise at the door. The rain fell in sheets that November evening, drumming against the windows of the Meridian Tower like 1,000 whispered secrets. Inside his corner office on the 42nd floor, Alexander Pierce stood at the glass, watching the city lights blur through the downpour. At 34, he had built an empire. Pierce Industries was worth billions, but tonight, the numbers on his computer screen felt hollow. His phone buzzed. Security. Mr. Pierce, there's a situation at your residence. You need to come immediately. 20 minutes later, Alexander's car pulled up to his brownstone in the historic district. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, and the street lamps cast golden pools on the wet pavement. His security chief, Marcus, waited at the door with an expression Alexander had never seen before, something between concern and confusion. Sir, we found this about 10 minutes ago. Alexander followed Marcus's gaze down. A wicker basket sat on his doorstep. Inside, wrapped in a pink blanket, was a sleeping child, a little girl, no more than 2 years old. Her blonde curls were damp, her cherubic face peaceful despite the cold. Clutched in her small hand was a worn stuffed rabbit, and pinned to her blanket was a handwritten note on blue paper. Alexander's hands trembled as he picked up the note. Asterisco, you promised to protect us, don't break it. Asterisco. His breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakable, elegant loops and careful curves he hadn't seen in 3 years. Emma Harley. Sir. Marcus asked quietly. Should I call the police? No. The word came out sharper than intended. Alexander knelt beside the basket, his expensive suit absorbing the rainwater from the step. The little girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open, deep green eyes that mirrored his own. No, he repeated, softer. I know who she is. He carefully lifted the child from the basket. She was surprisingly light, warm against his chest despite the cold. She looked up at him with those knowing eyes, then nestled her head against his shoulder as if she had done it 1,000 times before. Get the basket, Alexander instructed Marcus. And have the guest room prepared. The one with the attached bathroom, overlooking the garden. Inside, Alexander sat on the leather sofa in his living room, still holding the sleeping child. The basket sat on the coffee table before him, and he finally allowed himself to truly look at its contents. Besides the blanket and stuffed rabbit, there was a dapper bag with supplies, a few changes of clothes, and tucked in the bottom, a manila envelope. With one hand, he opened it. Inside were documents, a birth certificate, medical records, and a letter. The birth certificate made his heart stop. Asterisco name, Lily Emma Hartley. Father, unknown. Mother, Emma Rose Hartley, asterisco. Unknown. But those eyes told a different story. The letter was longer, written in that same careful hand. Asterisco Alex, I know this isn't fair. I know leaving her like this is the coward's way, but I'm out of options. Do you remember that night 3 years ago? The gala at the Grandview Hotel? You found me in the courtyard, crying because I'd just lost my job, my apartment, everything. You sat with me for hours. You said if I ever needed anything, if I was ever in trouble, you'd protect me. You made me promise to call you. I believed you, Alex. That night we shared, I never meant for it to be more than comfort, but then Lily came, and she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, asterisco. Asterisco I tried to raise her alone. I really did. But 2 months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe days. I have no family, no one to take her. I thought about foster care, but I kept remembering your promise. I kept seeing your eyes when you said those words, I'll protect you. Asterisco. Asterisco her eyes are your eyes, Alex. I never told you because I didn't want to trap you, but now I'm begging you, please keep your promise. Not to me, but to her. She deserves the world, and you can give it to her. Don't break your promise. Asterisco. There was no signature, just a smudged fingerprint in the corner, as if Emma had been crying when she wrote it. Alexander sat motionless as the words sank in 3 years ago the gala. He remembered Emma, artistic Emma with paint-stained fingers and a laugh like wind chimes. He'd been struck by her authenticity in a world of polished facades. They talked until dawn, and yes, there had been that moment of connection, of comfort turned to something deeper. Then she'd disappeared, and he'd assumed she'd simply moved on. He looked down at Lily, truly seeing her now. His daughter. The concept was staggering. Dada. The word was barely a whisper, but it shattered something in Alexander's chest. Lily was looking up at him with those green eyes, one small hand reaching up to touch his face. "Hey there," he whispered back, his voice cracking. "Hey, sweetheart." She smiled, and Alexander felt his entire world shift on its axis. The next weeks were a blur of adjustments. Alexander hired a nanny, Mrs. Chin, a grandmother with 30 years of experience and a smile that could warm the coldest room. He converted his home office into a playroom. He attended emergency parenting classes via video call between board meetings. And every evening, he came home to Lily's squeals of delight when he walked through the door. He hired private investigators to find Emma, to help her, to bring her home. But the trail ended at a hospice in Portland, where Emma Rose Hartley had passed away 3 days after leaving Lily at his door. She'd spent her final days ensuring her daughter's future, then quietly slipped away. Alexander stood at her grave on a cold December morning, holding Lily's hand. A simple marker read, Asterisco Emma Rose Hartley, artist, mother, brave soul. Asterisco. Your mama loved you very much, he told Lily softly. She made me promise to protect you, and I will. Every single day. Lily, in her red winter coat, placed a dandelion on the grave, the only flower she could find in the frost. Bah, mama. 6 months later, Alexander sat in his home office, now relocated to a smaller room down the hall. Through the doorway, he could see Lily in her playroom, painting with the enthusiasm only a 2-year-old could muster. Mrs. Chin supervised patiently as purple paint went everywhere except the paper. On his desk sat a framed photo, not of him, but of Emma, found among her belongings. In it, she held newborn Lily, both of them glowing with joy. Beside it was the blue note, preserved in glass, Asterisco you promised to protect us, don't break it. Asterisco. Alexander reached over and touched the frame gently. I haven't, he whispered. Y won't te. Dada. Come taint. Lily's voice rang out, imperious and joyful. Alexander smiled, rose from his desk, and walked toward his daughter. The empire could wait. Board meetings could be rescheduled. Numbers were just numbers. But promises made in rain-soaked moments, in desperate notes, in the eyes of a child, those were forever. And Alexander Pierce had never been more grateful for a promise in his life.